right, welcome to Season 1's finale of Education in Color. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. Luis Torres, principal of CS55. Torres, I'll let you introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, hi, my name is Luis Torres. I'm the principal of Community School 55. I've been a principal here for 18 plus years.
Thank you for that. And now we're just going to dive right in with the first question, which is, what was your educational experience like growing up, and what was your relationship with education and school in general?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I grew up in the Soundview section of the Bronx. Sadly, a lot of my friends either, were killed, didn't go continue their education, or were victims to the crack epidemic that was happening as I was growing up as a young man. During the time while I was going to school, no one took the time to know that I was an artist. So when I got to high school, it even became worse. They didn't even know anything about me. Like, my school counselor brought me into her office and told me that I would not be successful in college. So she told me I should join the military. So I wound up going to the military because I had a guidance counselor. They never took the time to know me as a learner and as an individual.
Man, that's insane. And you said you joined the Navy straight out of high school, right? And what was that experience like, and how did that experience in the military shape your pedagogical viewpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I joined the military at the age of 18. Back when I was going to high school, they allowed parents to sign their children up at the age of 18. And when I was in the military, I said, I left my community thinking I was escaping a dangerous environment, and I wound up in a war. Desert Storm happened. Luckily, the war was over before I got to go overseas. But while I was there, I was thinking about, how a person like my guidance counselor had the power to decide my future. And I said, you know what, I'm going to make sure I go back and I get into education to ensure that no other youth that look like me or come from where I came from have people telling them what they can and be, what they can and cannot be in the future. So that was my driving force behind becoming an educator. And as a result, I went to college. I earned an associate's degree. I earned a bachelor's degree. I earned a master's degree, and I earned an advanced degree in education to prove that guidance counselor wrong.
And it's interesting you mentioned that, because I've also had people in my schooling tell me similar concepts, like when I wanted to, and even though I'm still in education right now, before I wanted to be a superintendent or something of that nature. So I tell them, okay, I'm going to go get my bachelor's, then I'm going to get my master's, and then maybe my doctorate. But they're like, yo, slow down. How do you even know you're going to finish your bachelor's? How do you even know you're going to finish your master's? And now that I'm older, I'm starting to realize how messed up that was. Like, I was a kid. What business did you have telling me that, how do you know you're going to do X, Y, and Z? Because I realized that with children, they have what's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. If they believe, therefore they are. So if you keep putting into a kid's mind, hey, you're not going to be anything, you're not worth anything, you're never going to amount to anything, well, they're going to embody qualities akin to somebody who isn't worth anything. So it's actually interesting you mentioned that. But the next question I wanted to ask you was, have you ever had a male teacher of color growing up? And if so, who was the most impactful?
So growing up, I really didn't have access to male teachers of color until I got to high school. There I met my social studies teacher, Mr. Keller, at Stevenson High School in the Bronx. And it wasn't his teaching that really inspired me or made me think about education in any way. It was just the fact that, high school is when I first see my first black male teacher. And I knew that something was wrong there. We needed to change that. And I'm so happy that now as a principal, I work closely with the New York City Men Teach initiative to bring more black male teachers into the classroom, because our children need representation in the field, and they need to be able to see themselves. And if there's no one that looks like them in the field, they're more likely not going to join that field.
And I appreciate you shouting out mentees. Just an FYI, that was not like a paid promo or anything. That was like a genuine, genuine statement. But how did you start your professional career in education? And what was the moment that made you realize that this is the work that you were meant to do?
So I was attending Hostos Community College, and a professor there recommended I become a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
At that moment, I realized that all the things that life has been preparing me for were finally starting to fall into place. I wanted to, get revenge on that guidance counselor. I also wanted to be able to have impact on the youth. And being a professor, being a teacher would give me that access that I needed. That was the greatest aha moment for me. I became a teacher very early in my life. I was 21 when I started going into teaching and really getting involved in education. And after 3 years or more of teaching, I realized that I can have a greater impact as a principal. So I went straight from being a teacher, a certified teacher, into becoming a principal.
Oh, that's dope. And when you did go from teacher to principal, what was the biggest paradigm shift that you noticed?
The biggest shift that I felt, well, there was a few shifts. One was the fact that your stage goes from a very small stage, right, with your students, to a larger stage where you have a whole school population and teachers and others depending on you. So that was one shift. The second shift was where all my energy and focus was just solely on children. When you lead a school, you have to become familiar with adult education and understanding how adults work and how to lead adults. That's a little bit different than when you're working with the children.
And you've been the principal of CS55 for a little bit over 18 years now, correct?
Yes, I've been the principal of CS55 for 18 plus years.
Oh man, that's insane. That's like 7 years younger than me. Wow. But how has it been being the principal of CS55 thus far? And the follow-up to that question I want to ask is, how has the school changed under your leadership from when you first took over as principal to now?
Well, I love being at CS55. I've been here, like I said, all my career as a principal. It's the job I want to continue to do. I look to retire in this job and hopefully, be able to build on the work that I've started here. CS55 was once one of the most challenging schools to work in the city. And there was a need for resources. I was able to bring in resources and create a true community school here, where at this point we have a hospital in the school with a nurse, dentist, psychologist on staff. We're about to do a ribbon cutting on our soccer stadium that we built in the back of the school. We have child care protective services provided within the school building. And basically all the resources and the needs of the community are being met by the school. And for me, that's the greatest accomplishment that I can ever ask for as a principal of this school.
It's like you read my mind, because one of the next questions was going to be, what was the proudest accomplishments that you've had during your tenure? But you're talking about the community and how you've truly made CS55 a community school. I want to ask, how have you seen the community change and be receptive to the changes you've been making in the schools during your tenure here?
Yeah, so when I first took over this school, the population was predominantly Hispanic, Spanish-speaking, English-speaking families. Over the years, it's transformed into mostly African families coming in, speaking multiple dialects. And I've been able to refocus and reimagine the school to the point now where we're able to service our African community at a high level. And the families and parents appreciate the work that we're doing here. Where a lot of schools are struggling with enrollment and other issues, we're still hanging in there and able to do the work that we need to ensure that the community school model is really meeting the needs of the community. Because there's a lot of schools out there that will call themselves community schools, but are they truly serving the community? And working closely with the community and partnering with the imams and the different African leaders in the community, we've been able to create and establish a school that the families and the community respect.
And what have been some of the biggest challenges in crafting a community school such as CS55?
Yeah, it's very challenging to get the resources you need for your school, because not everyone sees what you see, right? Your purpose is your own purpose. Your vision is your vision. It's hard to get other people to see that. So because we serve a very poor community, there's not a lot of investment in the community. So all the resources, all the things I bring into the school are things that I have to hustle and beg for.
Yeah.
And that work is just not easy. You have to hustle and beg for resources when people know that, they're not going to get a return on their investment.
Right.
But I always tell them the return on the investment is the quality of the students that are leaving our school and having an impact on the lives of the families that we serve.
And it's funny you mentioned that too, the quality of life for the students, because literally as me and my producer were walking in over here, all I see is a bunch of happy ass kids. They're like yelling, having fun. And, it's been a while since I've been in a school setting that they're actually that jovial about whatever they're doing. There's been other times where I've pulled up to the school with Shamir and, as I'm passing my classrooms or whatever, the kids just look really, really happy. And like me, it always brings me back to my elementary school days. And it wasn't like I was unhappy in the school, but I was admonished for things like talking with my peers during class sometimes, or having fun or laughing or doing whatever. And as I'm older, I'm like, yo, I was a kid. Like, why are you punishing me for this stuff? But what are some of your goals for the school's future? And what partnerships have you done thus far that you have felt have been the most pivotal towards the school's success?
Yeah, so my goal is to have this school be recognized not only for the community work that we do, but for the academics, right? Because we are a model school when it comes to community work, but now we want our students to be high performing. So with that in mind, I do something I call community matching, where I match the resources of the school with the needs of the community, and where there are gaps, I fill those gaps with partnerships. I always tell people, for a lot of our families, education is a sixth priority, where food, shelter, safety, health, access to technology come first, and then education is the sixth priority. Not because the families don't value education, it's because those 5 basic needs outweigh education. So we've established partnerships, like I said, with Montefiore Hospital. We have Grand Wyndham services provided in the school. We have the Green Bronx machine with farms and aeroponic technology. We partner with Street Soccer USA to create the soccer stadium. We're about to open up the groundbreaking on our Windows of Hip Hop music studio in the basement of the school through Windows of Hip Hop and Melissa LeBron. So, when it comes to partnerships, that's what our school is known for. I established partnerships with all types of organizations to make those connections, to fill those gaps that we have between the resources we provide and the needs of the community.
Thank you for that. And I want to shift gears and ask a question that's related to education, but in a different field. How has it been being the president of and I don't want to botch the name, but it's the New York Schools Elementary...
New York City.
New York City.
Elementary schools.
Elementary schools.
Principals Association.
Principals Association. All right. I know there's like an acronym for it, but man, sometimes when I gotta string all those words together, I get like frazzled. But how has it been being the president of that association?
Well, it's been incredible. I'm the first Puerto Rican man to lead the organization.
Oh, that's dope.
We support hundreds of schools across the city with professional development and support. And it's just an honor for me to be able to serve other school leaders across the city. And, I take my job very seriously. I'm always looking to get resources, not only for my school, but for their schools as well. And I want all schools to be successful, right? Because if my school is the only one that's successful, then we're really not going to have the impact we need to make society a better place for all children.
And during your tenure as president, what have you noticed to be the most, impactful professional development for principals and then also for teachers?
Yeah, the most impactful professional development I see for people is when you start to talk about those 5 priorities, and you start to teach people about how education is not viewed as the priority by a lot of people, and helping them get those resources they need to address those basic needs that they need for their communities and to serve their community better.
Thank you for that. And now we're moving to like the final stretch of the episode. And I want to ask you, and this is going to be a little bit more of a personal question, but if you could go back in time and do anything different, would you or would you not?
If I can go back in time, when it comes to education, I would probably not change anything. Maybe I would have went straight to college instead of going to the military, because the guidance counselor told me that I would not be successful. I would have probably become an educator a lot faster, and maybe had an impact earlier in my life. I think when it comes to thinking about changing my life, the only thing I wish I would have done differently was appreciated time more. Losing my father was a big hit. Seeing him die and not spending the quality time I should have with him, and as well as my grandmother. I think that, we don't take time seriously. And I think that in life, even in education and everything we do, we don't value time as much as we should. And I think that, finding the time to value time is very important.
Thank you for that. And now, summarizing the episode, I want to thank you again for coming out, having this discussion with us. And do you have any stakeholders, people that you want to shout out? That's your camera right there. This is your time.
Yeah, I just want to say first off to Shamir Ennis, a great individual who has partnered with me to make sure that we get more Black and brown educators in the field. I want to give a shout out to Dr. Betty Rosa, who is the Commissioner of Education. She, was a mentor to me. She was somebody who believed that she could end the digital divide by herself. And I want to shout out my family, for always supporting me and making sure that I'm able to do this work. And then lastly, all the educators, whether they're my staff or people in the field, even yourself, for believing in the work that I'm doing and supporting my efforts to change the education system for the better for all children.
Thank you for that. And, I feel like we couldn't have picked a better guest for season 1's finale, because, again, I feel like you truly do represent what good leadership is in a community environment, as well as a diversity work. So, again, I want to thank you for coming out today. And with that being said, that does wrap up season 1. So stay tuned for season 2. And we'll see you when we see you. Take care, guys. You think it'd be cool if I came and sat down and then said the message? I just ruined that first part, but you know what? It's cool. We're going to keep going, because as they say in show business, that's a wrap. Season 1 is finally over. It has been a pleasure to film all of the guests that we had throughout season 1, and I hope you guys enjoyed the journey throughout season 1 as much as I have. Both me and my producer Basilio have loved every second of producing this podcast, highlighting the stories that need to be told, and furthering the work of diversity in education. Thank you. From Education in Color, from New York City Men Teach, for tuning in, watching all the episodes, and giving us your support. To all the educators watching, I want to tell you guys that the work you do is vital. It's vital to this community, it's vital to this nation, and it's vital to everyone involved in the education system. I want you to know that you're appreciated and that we will always support you. With that being said, season 2 is actually being produced currently, so I can't wait for you guys to see what we have planned for season 2, because we have a huge lineup of amazing guests, and we got a great location that is just chef's kiss. And there's a funny story to tell about season 1's location that I'll probably tell you guys during season 2, but I can't wait for you guys to tune into that. But in the meantime, while you're waiting for season 2 to be produced, here's a highlight reels of season 1's best moments. We hope you enjoy, and can't wait to see you guys for season 2's premiere. Take care.
And I'll never forget, funny story, I ended up on like a weekend, it was like a Saturday, I ended up going to the movies with some of my friends. And so we're chilling in the movies, we get our snacks, we're like excited, hyped to watch this movie. And one of my buddies was like, yo, that's Mr. Regan. So I was like, nah, it can't be. You know what I mean? Like the disconnect between seeing your teacher in like this one space in a school to then seeing them, you know, like in like a social setting and like the movie theater just like blew my mind, but also it just humanized them. You know, it's like, man, here's like this guy that we idolize and like look up to, but he's at the movie theater. You know what I mean? And aside from the fact that he was in the movie theater, his wife was there. We were like, yo, this guy just like too cool. And so that was like my first experience with having a male educator of color, and that was in 8th grade. So shout out to Mr. Regan.
And, you know, it's funny that you mentioned the whole fact about humanizing educators and seeing them outside the classroom, because I think when I was younger, everyone, myself included, we used to think teachers used to live in the basement. Like some Cyclops or something like that. And then when we see them outside, we'd be like, wait,
Yeah.
oh my God, they're real. They're not
Yep.
just, you know, a fixture in the actual school.
But yes, I think something that a lot of folks also don't realize about working as a teacher, particularly in New York City, is how much the city has actually invested in the teaching force, in, you know, growing that teaching force, in developing that teaching force, in compensating that teaching force as well. I think when I started out as a first-year teacher, I'm not going to say how many years ago, but it was a lot. You know, I think my starting salary was closer to $39,000 at the time.
What? That's crazy.
And obviously there's inflation and there's other things that happen. But, you know, now for our new teachers, the base starting salary, and again, it might be different based on your experiences and different education credits that you have, is $61,070, you know, as of the last union contract.
You had it memorized to like the exact dollar amount. I only have like a 61, 62 type
I work
of
in
variation.
recruitment. Yeah, we talk about this a lot, right, with all of our teachers. But then, you know, there are different ways that our teachers are able to increase their salary. So, for example, there are different, you know, roles and other things that teachers can do, and they actually have to be compensated at a particular rate. It's called procession work. And so all those positions are posted centrally. Our office actually hires procession staff to help us with teacher recruitment, with working as interviewers for the program. You know, and those positions, I believe, make around $51 an hour. So again, you're able to increase your earnings through procession. And then last but not least, I have to talk about, you know, the teacher career pathways. So the city has also worked with the union to create, you know, different kind of pathways for teachers. So now we have people who are working as teachers, but they're also being compensated for time that they're spending developing new teachers, acting as a model teacher for other teachers, acting as a teacher, you know, who can, you know, support and grow others.
I do want to ask you, what inspired you to co-found AA10, and how is the partnership with New York City Men Teach vital?
Well, it wouldn't be possible without this initiative, NYC Men Teach, right? As far as I know, I mean, the growth was happening, right? So we wanted to jump on the growth, and in 2016, there was a couple of articles saying that there was a shortage,
Right.
but there was a funnel of Asian American male teachers coming in, so that was interesting. And then also, there's a statistic around how many Black, Asian, and Latinx students that were in the DOE, which is like, I think 8 out of 10 students are that. I think that sounds pretty high, but in relation to that, there was 4 out of 10 teachers that were Asian American. So we wanted to catch it up, right? We wanted to catch those numbers up because of, there's this research that was published way back in Stanford. I would also name drop Dr. Travis Bristol. He does a lot of work on teachers and ethno-racial matching, big fancy word with basically, if they have an ethnicity, race that matches the background of the student's race, there is an additional impact that will happen. And research suggests that, and research have been published, right, all over the place around like retention of students coming in, being participating more, lower rates of discipline issues in class. I would argue more joy. Joy should be a metric, right? There's so much that we have to learn from building and taking advantage of like these types of programs that are focused on like one community.
And so get them training where they can get into unions that will support them and then generate the money so that now you have people that are working and then they'll be in housing and things of that sort like that. That's what we really need to do.
Right.
I think personally like that.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like when it comes to community is such a vital aspect in any person's upbringing, quite frankly. Like when you grow up in a community, things are just done in a different way. I grew up in South Ozone Park, so that was a primarily West Indian neighborhood, but then there was also like Little Bangladesh, which was like by City Line, a couple blocks down. And my mom had a huge support system there because all of her friends were there. I used to call them all my aunts, my uncles, and my cousins. I got older, then I realized, oh, you guys aren't related to me. We just happen to know each other from the community. That's
exactly.
it. And so when you think about it that way, right, that just shows like on a smaller level, just on a one family basis, how much community can mean. But when you look at it at a bigger perspective, like a top-down type of thing, you can see that in a community, if you're modeling these things, like you're saying, vocational school, unions, etc., kids growing up, they look at that more favorably because kids are just ultimately going to model what the adults in their community are doing. So by not serving the community, you are effectively not serving the kids because when they're out of school, what are they around? What's the surroundings? What is influencing them? If it's not things that are positive, then these kids are going to start to feel a little lost, even if they're getting that education in school, that 8 hours a day. What about the other 16 hours in a day? What are they doing then?
Exactly.
But then I ask myself, how many kids of ours are going through so much? And a lot of times what we're doing is we're so, and rightfully so, but we're so heavily focused on getting through the lesson in the classroom, but not paying attention to their eyes. What's going on here? Because that one kid who will curse you out and act a fool. If you dig deeper, did he eat last night? Did he sleep last night?
Right.
I had a teacher who amazing math teacher. He now works outside of DOE. But he told me, hey, Mr. Joe, let me tell you what happened this morning. I'm like, what happened? He's like, this morning I'm walking into the building. I'm having a wonderful day. I had my coffee, my bagel. And I see one of my students. I say, good morning, how you doing? And this kid said, fuck you. I kept on walking. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, my instinct was like, hey, come back here. He said, but I thought about what you told me. It's not about you. So you have to ask yourself, what did you do to that kid in that moment? He's like, I asked myself, what did I do to him? I did nothing. There must be something else. He said, he said to me, you'd be proud of me. I said, what I did. I planned it out that during lunchtime, I'd find him. He was in my class during the day. I just left him alone. I said nothing to him. Lunchtime, I'm going to go find him. So I found him. I said, hey, how's the rest of your day going? He said, do you know this kid? The first thing the kid said to me is like, mister, I have to apologize about this morning. I was having a bad day. I had a bad argument with my mom, and it's just been too much. And you didn't deserve that. At that moment in time, I was still dealing with that. This was a seventh grader.
Right.
But how many times would a teacher say, you know what? Call the parent. I don't want to hear it. How dare you speak to me like that? And all of that. And not understanding, our kids often are going through what most adults can handle.
Exactly.
But we don't give them the grace to really find out what's going on.